Hello, my name is Agnes Vludyka, and I would like to welcome you to the curatorial talk of the exhibition Migracje Migrations. As the main curator with my assistant Magdalena Stańczyk and technical help from Karolina Raczyńska, we created 3 rooms in a gallery, in a three-dimensional gallery space that tells various stories of migration, what it is to be a migrant, story of the journey itself, but also the emotions that accompany each person and each story. Through videos, audio recordings, artworks, poems, and texts, each gallery tells its own story of migration, whether it's forced, caused by conflicts, climate change, persecution. For economic reasons, migration following animals, or for love, through the one caused by a career change, studies abroad, to the simple desire to experience life in another country, to stories of migration into oneself in search of an inner refuge. It was important for us that this exhibition is made by migrants and looked at from a particular perspective. To us, it brings more authenticity. And also it's filled with emotions because we as migrants feel also the emotions that those people had to go through, even though our stories are completely different. Migration has similar aspects as well. The galleries vary in shape and size, reflecting different aspects of migration. So I will enter the exhibition now. And as you can see, this is our poster. This gallery is the first gallery that we can see, and it's got some holes in it, some spaces. It's not like a one room. You can go there and there is another space. You can go back and there is a space. You can actually go outside of this gallery, this particular gallery. And this is to reflect that forced migration is basically, there is no one path to it. Forced migration can be taking any of the paths. And we will never know when we will end up. That's the whole point, problem. We don't know if this path that we chose is the correct one. And we will probably never know, even though we will end up in a quite safe situation if we are a forced migrant. However, we will never know for sure that this is the right path that we took. They are varied in shape and sizes. However, they are also very fluid because it starts with the forced migration through to the more economic migration, which is still very forced, but it's not really economic, as we will find out. And we are here in this smaller room. It's more claustrophobic. It's more, yeah, it's kind of closing on us, and it's a bit overwhelming. And this, because also this migration, the economic migration, if we just put a label on it, or for example, forced migration for labor, or forced migration for any other reasons, is overwhelming, but also it's very challenging in terms of stereotypes. So there is a lot of stereotyping, there is a lot of prejudice against the migrants, against the people, and they are fighting those prejudices. They have to fight. And from this gallery onwards, apart from one previous one, we start audio recordings that are also present through the entire exhibition. But going back to this, so this is the second room. And then we have the third one. I wanted to show you the whole space, firstly, just because so you can have in mind all those connections that we matched, that we drew. So this room is very big, very spacious. There is a lot of room in here. There is a little corner, but I will explain later what it means. So it's vast. It's vast, and because finally this is migration by will, mostly by will, and usually we associate migration by will with something positive. Not always these journeys, unfortunately, are very positive, because every migration is very problematic. But also this room is very big and spacious because it symbolizes a certain emptiness that accompanies us, because we do leave our loved ones, and whether family, friends, or even places, we do leave them behind. And all we have is this new space that we have to try and live in, but it's a different space, and we do miss things that we left behind. It's just a natural thing for us. And therefore, this room is the biggest, but it also has gaps, and you can leave it. It just leaves you the open plan, so you can start your new adventure. It doesn't have to be the final one. This destination doesn't have to be the final destination. You can go on and change your life in many different ways. Obviously, given that you are lucky enough to do so, or you can just inquire about this, and hopefully it goes like that. So we are back to square one, so to the beginning. And the last room that we saw, it's migration mainly by will. And the aim of the exhibition is to challenge certain stereotypes, because migration doesn't have just one phase or just one aspect. There are so many different aspects, and we did not touch on some of them in this exhibition, because it's crazy. I mean, migration existed from the prehistoric times. Only in the Middle Ages we became more settled down, but the artists traveled for work, the artists traveled to learn, women, princesses traveled to marry kings and become future queens of different countries, and they had to migrate for that reason as well. So there are so many different aspects to the migration. We could only touch on some of them, but we hope that by doing so, we manage to challenge those stereotypes and to show you a different perspective and different, a little bit a different perception, perhaps. And because there's such a vast amount of work in at this exhibition, I will allow myself to introduce only a few. That's not to say that others are not important at all. They are all fantastic, phenomenal, and we thank our artists. I will thank them at the end of this talk as well. But I can mention only a few, otherwise we could be here for hours. That's not the point. I mean, maybe it is, but we want to also keep it concise, so people don't get too overwhelmed, because we must remember that even though this is a three-dimensional gallery, it's still a virtual space, and online we see things differently, we view things differently, and we don't have the same patience or the same maybe even willingness, perhaps, to stick to the end. So I'll try to be quite quick. For me, it was important to have a starting and finishing point to wrap up the whole exhibition. And the best starting point for me was the video by Paolo Bandino, No Country, which is kind of a trailer for our exhibition, and I will play it now. So this was Paolo Bandino, No Country, and this was his video made of photograph stills. And it's just, while I use the word trailer, it just presents our exhibition like a trailer presents a movie, because it just shows all the aspects of migration that we talk about. And the video tells the story blurring the boundaries and the exploration of Earth, but also of the whole universe, because at the end we end up in the universe, and also tells many stories of migration. And who knows, is the universe the end of it, or do we get there at the end? Is there something behind? So this was the perfect beginning for me. And throughout the exhibition, we also have snippets of the book of Jarosław Mikołajski, The Great Tide, that tells the story of people from Lampedusa, who obviously experience a lot of migrants who flee there from Africa, and not just Africa, many other countries, but they come by sea, and they the book shows their perspective. So they talk in the book, they have the main voice, and we try to fit each section accordingly. And the beginning section is, it was quite obvious for me, especially, which means for me, there is no such thing as immigrants. There are people. The very division between us and them is the beginning of a misunderstanding. And that's the whole problem. I mean, the great unknown, the thing that we don't know, the migrants, we don't know their culture. They just come into our homes, to our countries with their own different customs, with their own religion, with their own cultural aspects, and they just stir up our lives. But we shouldn't be scared. We should try to get to know them better, try to get to know their culture, because we might end up actually getting to know something exceptional. We can't just judge people or book by its cover and just base our voices or opinions on superficial things. And there is another tandem of paintings, one of them, both by Osvaldo Vasquez Martinez. One of them is the story of the Hermanos family, and this talks about not just migration as a dangerous thing because you have to get on a boat or you have to walk through the forest, but also migration that splits up families. Not everybody can leave, not everybody can go at the same time, and that's very frustrating and very sad and upsetting that somebody has to sacrifice, somebody has to go first, and then other people join, or other members of the family not necessarily can join, and that's also very sad. Obviously, many migrants, as is seen now at the Belarusian border, have to go through the forest and many times leave themselves in the forests. And this is especially upsetting and sad. And this is the dark wilderness, I guess, which is Ciemna Dzicz in Polish by Jacek Poręba. And it just illustrates the horror and fear that people must feel in this not even foreign country, but foreign land, but also this not inviting forests, which is dark and cold in the winter time, not so hot in the summer, but still very dangerous. And people don't see the way out of it. It's not like there is a clear path. It seems like a enchanted forest and not enchanted in a good way. So that's also a bit sad. But we also have some rays of hope. This is Cesar Sabalos, the Ukraine's Exodus Bridge, which is a positive accent, even though it's a bit empty, it's a bit sad, but at the same time, there is this bridge which symbolizes the bridge for people to flee through to another country, to another land. And not just Ukrainians in this context. Cesar depicted Ukrainian flag, but not just Ukrainians. This is for all the refugees, all the migrants. And it is a bit patchy. It's patched up with the medical tape. But by using it, it also brings some optimism and some hope that we can actually patch things up, that we can put the patches on the wounds. Some people can't heal, but some people will. And that's maybe not to the extent that we would like them to, but that gives us hope for another future, for the future altogether. And this is just amazing. And this is our accent, Ukrainian accent, at our exhibition. And it's also very interesting that the same subject, I'm sorry, I'm jumping a little bit like that, but I just don't want to keep you so much. These are two paintings that were brought together. They both tell migration story, one by Alicja Wieczorek and the other by Emil Czewiczan. And but they look completely different. So Alicja depicted her migration story in digital art, and Emil did watercolors. And we see the masses of people fleeing, they fleeing force. So it's not any different, but yet the two pictures couldn't be more further apart in a way. In a way, they are very similar, and in another way, they are very different, but they're real and they're very emotional. So both of them, even though they're completely different in the perspective of vision, visually. They tell exactly the same story. And this is also so great at our exhibition that we have different mediums and we could portray all these aspects of migrations by different mediums. And when we go here, sorry, it's a bit of a of a walk. This is an audio by Karol Zacharski, and he made one by Force, and then there is another one in the last room by Will, which I will present to you later on. And this is an audio, his take on migration, and in this case, migration by force. So as we could hear, it was quite unpleasant. Also, the changing monochromatic squares were really disturbing, and you could have the sense, I mean, the sense of fear of the unknown, the sense of urgency, I would say. And that's exactly what forced migration is. You have to go. Maybe it's a war, maybe it's a bomb that will drop on your house, maybe it's a fire, and you have to just go. You can't look back. You barely have time to pack anything. Maybe you don't even have that. And you just have to go, and you don't know where you're going. So obviously this is very hard, and Karol presented it brilliantly here. We also have Ken Clary with the Rukban Sandstorm. But I wanted to go to Vardit Goldner, who presented us with the photograph of cranes. They are at the Israeli lake, if I'm not mistaken, at the Hula. It's a stop break for them because among human migrations, we encounter animal ones because they happen by nature, and some of them unfortunately happen by humans. And here we see interference of humans, because it's a sad story that the cranes migrate and they have a stopover. Unfortunately, the farmers started to feed the birds so they don't destroy the crops, and the cranes decided to stay put. They decided not to migrate any further. And in this big crowd of birds, obviously, the disease spreads quickly and many of them die. So this is a very moving and sad animal migration story, but influenced by people as well. So there are people influenced by people, but also animals. And their natural path is broken, and they are forced to change and to adapt to what humans offer them. And this is also reflected in many of the people's stories. They also have to adapt. They also have to stop over somewhere, and they can't go any further. And that parallel is very touching, in my opinion. We also have we also have a postcard from Madagascar, which also presents the migration of indigenous people. This is actually in Madagascar, but draft can happen anywhere. And it's actually happening right now in many places that we didn't even think of. So this is caused by humans, and we must stop that well, as soon as we can, as soon as possible, because if not, it will get even worse and worse. And people who had to flee before, who are still fleeing, are people who contribute the least to climate change. However, we can see the draft happening in other places. And even close to me, people can't use water anymore for certain things, only to wash and only to drink, because there is no rain. The climate is very hot, the weather is very hot, and I live in Europe. So that's the reality. And we must wake up, and we must do something, because it can't be just these people who have to flee, and it can't be just because we would have to flee that we change something. We must act quickly. That was just a small digression. And here we have the second room, and there is this video by Daniela Lucato, When I Dance. It tells the story, these are actually parts of the video. It tells the story of migrants, the refugees, that they tell their own stories, but also folk dancers try to tell their stories through their own bodies and the music. And here we are trying to challenge certain stereotypes, because, for example, Adil that we see here in this video, I can play maybe a tiny bit.
Until 2002, nothing is Pakistan, the world beautiful country, and we are safe. Women, men, we are that time we are so young with girls, women. We go together, school, running everywhere, all day.
So as we can see, Adil's story is of a country that he remembers that is great. He didn't want to go anywhere, but he was forced. And unfortunately, in Pakistan, he owned a shop, he owned a car, he owned a house. But in Berlin, where he migrated, he has nothing. And he can't even work, because obviously the obstacles of the legal system, the legal aspects. So this is just one of the stories of many stories that should be looked at, and there should be something done in this matter, because those people, if they have to flee, if the penalty of staying in your own country is death, you need to do something, and you can't be penalized for that in another country. I know it's not as simple, but something should be done to help those who have to escape. And this is an interesting corner here, because we have established artists like Nino Mema Nishvili, also Ellen Hanauer, and we have a new artist, Hritik Chakraborty. And all of these accounts tell us different aspects and different looks at migration story. So it's also very nice, because these artists, these established artists, they have experience and they have their own memories, or the memories of their predecessors. And the new artists might not have this memory, might not have the experience, but they have something else. And all of them can give us the account on migration, which is also powerful, but they show us different aspects, yet they treat the same topic. So that's also fantastic, especially here with Ellen Hanauer showing the workforce piece. This is about child labor in America in the 1900s. And this is really sad. So this room is not just economic migration, as we can see. It's many different aspects of migration. And as I said before, we try to escape from labels. We try not to label that this is the room of economic migration, or this is by force, because in a sense, all migration is forced in some way or another. I mean, you have to change your career, or you have to go because of the war, or you have to go because you need to earn money for your family. Different reasons, but at the end it's the same outcome. And here we have a fragment. I will show you a fragment of the dance, the migrant dance story.
Algunos refugiados, de cosas que iban hablando, también fue como un poco un despertar, porque a pesar de las historias, que eran unas historias muy duras, de pronto las voces eran unas voces muy vivas y muy animadas y con mucha fuerza. Así que también eso también fue como un impulso para, ¿cómo decir?
But as Maya said, there is this impulse to start again. So that's fantastic, that there is some hope, and there was hope, as I said before, with Cesar work. So the migration, even by force, is not all obviously it's not all gloomy. There are little acts of kindness that they can actually take the person a long way and help that person to get somewhere better than they were. And here we have another animal story, this time by Arsenio Maria Navarra. And this is people getting closer to animals. So this is about this Mongolian man who is following his herd even for hours every day, and he follows them as they follow the seasons, and obviously him and his whole family, they live in tents called ger. They have to move accordingly to the animals, according to the seasons. So this is also a very interesting aspect of migration, and the fact that humans are combined with the animals. They are intertwined with the animals, sorry, and they depend on them, and they depend on where they go. And this is a different aspect. It's not humans making humans go somewhere, or humans making animals go somewhere. This is a reverse kind of migration. This is human following the animals. And this one was, these two photographs, a very good example of that. And throughout the exhibition, we also have these little audio stories. So we asked people the same questions, and they came up with different answers, obviously, and it became a story. So they don't ask the questions, we don't ask the questions. They knew the questions, and they just tell us the answers to them. So I play a little bit of that.
Hi, my name is Kathy. I've been abroad for just over 30 years. Well, I decided to immigrate, and was it a difficult decision? No, it was my personal choice for my professional development.
So as we can see, people recount their own migration story, and we thought this was a very good addition, because it gives more authenticity as well. It's not just pictures, it's not just videos, it's not just installations, but also these real life stories. We don't have many migrant stories. It starts with Pierre Leichner, who is recounting the story of his grandparents who had to migrate. and almost drowned at sea. But later on, we have stories mostly from people who decided to migrate. And however, those stories also vary. It's not all peachy. Some stories have some upset, maybe not very upsetting, but sad aspects. Because as I said before, all migration is problematic. It's not just very easy. The decision is not easy. And everything is quite difficult. Or like here with Alice Latar, she struggled with her own identity, in this term, Serbian identity. And this is also very heartbreaking to hear that somebody would struggle with something like that. For us, is mostly mostly normal. We have an identity. We don't have to struggle with anything. Yet there are people who struggle with their identities, followed by war or followed by different conflicts, the different upbringing, different lineage, and so on. And in the last room, we have many pictures, videos, audio recordings, but I just wanted to point out that this one by Judith Leroux is about the memories of her grandmother. It's her grandmother's old photographs, and many migrants carry something with them, whether it's a photograph of loved ones or a stuffed animal, for example, or a letter or another souvenir from the previous life, the previous time that they were somewhere else, that they were in their country or in the previous station, so to speak. And this is Judith's take on this one. We always carry something in our suitcases, something to remind us about our past, our old life. So in a way, migration is like a journey as well. It's a journey through different periods of time, but also it's a different journey than just a trip, obviously. And we see all the time those snippets from the book and also the audio recordings. And I just wanted to show you the Caros by Will. So as you remember, Caro presented us with recording by force before, and this is by will. They sound differently. They look different. However, in some ways, I mean, this recording is much calmer, is much more reassuring, so to speak. The other was very giving us a lot of anxiety. However, at the same time, there are some notes that are very similar. And the fact, as I said before, remains that every migration is difficult. Whichever migration we have to go through, there will be difficult times. There would be good times as well, but there would be difficult times. And there are many problems. And one of the problems might be that we basically miss someone. And this is the poem by Janis Roca, Saudade, Longing. I am more than 1,000. I miss you with a full luggage and an empty chest. If I have a nest and landing, I'm home. And with little, everything becomes inhabits, returns. I leave more of me. I take my chest full of you. I am sadness disguised as tiredness. Photograph in the pocket to remind me of what I do. I cancel distance. I increase the grace period. I'm more than 1,000 more of you. So as we can see, this room is not just the room about the people or even the animals. We have animal migration, also by digital art or photograph or video, but we also have this longing to something that we left behind. And here we have this corner that is a completely different migration. One migration is to another language. This migration is that we are partially still here and partially over there. This migration is to migrate within yourself because you are scared of what you see outside. This was actually related to the pandemic. Alislatar migration from one part of the body to another because one part of our body is hurt and we migrate to another part. And we might migrate like animals, in this part, in this instance, butterflies. So this is very interesting that migration doesn't only happen to go from one place to another, but it could happen from one part of the body to another, or within yourself to find your own shelter. So this definitely surprised us because we got it from the open call, and we really appreciate those works because they added some perspective to our exhibition. We also have a 8K 360 animation, a swarm, which can be viewed through the goggles, from Google, Google goggles, the cardboard goggles. And it's also an addition of some kind of technical touch. And here is the story of the hummingbird, which brings water for the fire in the forest in its beak. And when asked why you bring water in your beak, it won't help, it won't change anything, you won't extinguish the fire. He says simply, he replies that I'm doing what I can, what is expected of me. So if we all do something, I think we can achieve good results. And this is obviously the Paolo Bandino postcard that is a still from our video from the beginning that finishes our exhibition. And from the universe, you can see any borders and no boundaries. And this is how we should be, really. And we go quickly through the entire exhibition to our poster. I just wanted to thank, I just wanted to say that it's easy to give an instant label on someone or something. However, we must remember that our lives, our stories are more complex than just first impression. And all of us, to some extent, are migrants, some by force, some by will. And in our exhibition, we aim to give a voice and a face to each migration, each story, and every person, and I hope we achieve that. I would like to thank our artists that you can see here at the poster, Paolo Bandino, Jarosław Mikołajski, Alicja Wieczorek, Dorota Grochala, Pierre Leichner, and so on and so forth. And people who recounted their stories to us, like Wendy, Marilyn, Alessandra, Panos, Ioanni, Bilur, Christine, or Sue. And last but not least, I would like to thank our patrons, Manga Museum of Japanese Art and Technology, the State Ethnographic Museum in Warsaw, the District Museum in Toruń, and Tomasz Stawiszyński's Skądinąd podcast. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the tour. And I'm sorry I couldn't present all the artworks for you, but I hope you enjoyed and you will take something from it. Thank you very much.